I've been a big fan of Bonobo ever since I discovered his music while I was in school, and I was even lucky enough to catch the last of the North Borders tour in London. But for me, the album that I've been most fascinated with is Animal Magic, and the way it takes these Eastern influences and blends them with these soft organic textures and all of the subtle layering and sound design that just makes this album perfection. So in this video I'm going to be showing you some of the VSTs that I use to get some of the interesting Japanese and Chinese inspired sounds into your music. I'll be showing you all of the methods and the tools that I use to get these organic, Foley rich, ear candy rich drums. I'm breaking down some of the more unusual tricks that I used to make this beat that I'll be breaking down in the video. As a quick side note, I'm trying to find some new albums to listen to at the minute, so if anyone's got any recommendations for similar sort of organic, interesting, trip-hop inspired stuff, we'd love to know in the comments down below. But for now, I've got a lot of interesting methods to break down in this video, so I'm going to dive straight in. So we're going to be working at 95 BPM, and to kick things off, I'll throw in some vinyl crackle and some field recordings just to fill out the background of the track. And then I'm also going to start off with a nice piano melody that grounds the song as we go through different sections. We'll bring texture in, drop it out, but we're always going to have this melody sort of grounding the song. So I'm going to record it on 3 different pianos, lay them all together for some instant texture. I've got Lecco, the Imagero piano, and the Ulfa Arnolds Composer Toolkit piano. Ulfa Arnolds has made a few tracks of Bonobo in the past, so it's very fitting to use that. So this is the melody, blending in with the background atmosphere. And then I'm going to run it through a guitar amp simulation, the Mateus Sarso plugin, instantly adding more grit, and it adds also a sort of tape delay, just giving it lots of space and movement. Then using the same pianos, record a warm low end chord progression. Again, running through the Mateus Sarso plugin. You can check it out here in this video if you haven't already. It's a really nice plugin that I've been using on loads of instruments. You can hear the delay there from the Mateus Sarso plugin. So already got loads of texture and carried it in this track. Next up, let's get some drums going. I'm going for a more upbeat trip hop groove, so it's a bit different to my usual tracks. I'm layering in some kicks, some snares from my organic pack, which you can check out here, and then also a couple of snares from my chill drums pack. Lay it in with the organic sort of percussive stuff. Also finger tapping on the snare to add this little additional texture. And now we start to fill in all of the gaps with Foley loops from the organic lo-fi pack. Loads of little recordings, just tapping the hi-hat with different brushes and different percussive and Foley found sounds. Just record so much and layer it all together, filter out all the low ends, make sure you've just got the nice ear candy textures, pan them different ways, and you've got a great start. So I can't play the drums very well, so until I learn how to play the drums, I'm just going to be recording everything separately, and it worked really well. Even a cheap hi-hat and snare from Facebook Marketplace, bring them home, record them on your phone, just record different percussive stuff, some hi-hat textures. It doesn't have to be a great recording, but once you add a bit of reverb, add some filtering, blend them together, you can get some great results. So now I'll drop the drums in with the piano and record a bass line too. Keeping the bass line simple, just following the root notes of the piano. Playing on my P-Bass DI into the interface. If you want any more chord progressions, I did this video a little while back talking about some lo-fi and ambient-esque chord progressions that work well in this context as well. But now we have the sort of basic idea of the track, it's time to add the more interesting textures. And if you're using these techniques to make some beautiful Bonobo-inspired music, it would be a real shame not to share it with the world. And what a better way to do that than using this week's sponsor, who is DistroKid. DistroKid has been a long-time supporter of the channel, and I'm a huge fan of the service that they offer, which is easily the best value distribution on the market. What that means is they take your music and they deliver it to sites like Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Deezer, and all of the DSPs that you want to be on to get your music heard. I've got a link in the description down below where you can get 7% off your first year's membership, and I would highly recommend checking out the different plans to find the one that is perfect for you. And a feature that is being massively slept on at the minute is their instant share. It essentially acts as a very professional landing page where you can send your music to A&Rs, different labels, different playlist curators, and different artists for collaborations, and it essentially makes you look a lot more professional than just sending, say, a private SoundCloud link with the added bonus of additional file quality and additional protections where you can password protect the file so only certain specific people can see it and not everyone who gets a hold of the link. It's free to send up to 1 GB of files, and it's going to impress anyone that you send it to with the highest quality streaming available on your files. So if you want to check out DistroKid, click the link in the description down below. You can get 7% off your first year. But for now, let's talk about some of the tips and tricks to get some incredible texture in your tracks. Next up, I grabbed my very first acoustic guitar. It's got some old rusty strings on it, a lot of dust, and I lobbed this thing in on the 12th fret. Now this was designed for this reason specifically, but you don't actually need it. You can get anything that just raises the height of the strings. That just enables you to give it a bit of a wobble, give it a Koto-esque sound. Open tunings work best for this, but for me, I was just trying to get specific notes and phrases, so I didn't play it all in one take, but I was just finding little things that added to the track that I already had, and I got that recorded and applied a few effects. So just a bit of the Mateus Assato plugin again, for a little bit of amp-driven sound, and a little bit of reverb from the plugin, a little bit of filtering, and this is the final result. Next up, I wanted a bit of Aero texture to sort of blend in with that as well. Unfortunately, I don't have a makeshift Aero, but I do have this World Colours Aero contact instrument, which sounds really nice. It's got some great sounds built in, and it's got some nice phrases and stuff, so it sounds super natural. So using the key switches, I got this quite natural, interesting sounding Aero bounce, which I added some filtering and some reverb to. A lot of particle verb, which is a very heavy particle reverb, a bit of convolution reverb as well. Next up, onto the vocal textures. So for this, I've got an array of plugins, which I'll list here, which I use for vocal stuff. In this case, I use quite a few different textures from the Oliver Patrice, the Yair Elzar Glotman kit, and some contact patches from the Slate & Ash Auras bundle, with some pitch shifting and modulation in there as well. Lay them all together, pan them different ways, and it just brings such a life and depth into these mixes. Finally, I've got this Guzeng sample, which I threw on Portal, so it's just blending from left to right with granular delay on 100% wet. Again, just adding another little element of texture to it. So far, blending everything together, this is what we've got. Finally, we want a bit of flute warmth. So there's a few ways that you can do that and get a really nice sound. Firstly is with a good VST. So stuff like Oliver Patrice Pool Project has a nice flute VST, which works well for sort of pads and textures. But if you want a more articulate sound, I'd recommend checking out the Swam bass flute, which has got a Bansuri patch in there as well. And it's a completely modeled sound. So there's no samples. From the ground up, they remodel the sound of a flute, which gives you an immense control over the sort of different articulations and how you play it. But to do that, you need a more expressive controller. You can either use firstly this touch controller, which I think I've shown in a previous video, where you essentially press it in and you get different articulations of MPE. So you can press down there, or push it different ways to get different sort of MPE functions. Or if you really want to get more natural, you can get one of these, which is a breath controller. This is the TEC Control breath and bite controller too, so if you bite it, it gets a different sort of MIDI articulation, as well as the natural sort of replication of flutes with the blowing feature. So you put it around your head and then blow into this, like in this demo. And if you use that with the Swam flute, or I think it's probably more on the market, I'm definitely going to try and delve into it more. You can get a supernatural sound, especially once you start getting some reverb and different effects on there too. Alternatively, you can buy your own flute. This is a Duduk I got off of eBay for like £30. It's quite difficult to learn. I haven't mastered it yet, but you can get some nice sort of organic textured sounds. Or finally, another great way of doing it is, even if you can't quite hone the sound of the virtual flute instrument, you can record exactly what you want from the take and then send it to a session musician, maybe on Fiverr. And if you've already written the sort of melody that you want, it makes things much easier. And I'm sure you'll get an amazing result that way as well. So with that in mind, I'll get some flute textures in this track to finish it off, and it sounds like this. So this is a sort of dropout section where I recorded a more sort of simple, minimal version of the piano, just to let the track breathe a little bit before bringing in that upbeat trip hop drum. So yeah, that's a quick overview of the track. I hope you found it interesting. If there's anything specific that you want me to go into more detail of, I can make a whole video on different elements of this, like different elements of the textures, of the drums, etc. It could be dedicated to a whole video. So do let me know in the comments down below if that's something you'd like to see. And if you want to hear this full finished track, please do keep an eye on my Instagram, where it's going to be released very soon, called under the name Ido Magiku. Do give that a follow if you want to hear more about my tracks and updates like that. So if you finished a similar track and you want some tips on mixing and mastering, I'll drop a link to a video that you can check out. But for now, thank you very much for watching and catch you next time.